Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, Noelle's Adventures. Today we will be talking about, yes, I'm looking to the side because I need to look at my list that I have right here so I don't forget things. But we will be talking about three things to think about and consider when you're planning a road trip. So my last video was mistakes to avoid, and this one is things to think about, specifically when planning a road trip, things to take into consideration. And they may seem, very obvious, but hopefully some of the things that I have to share about those three things will make something go off in your head and you'll think, oh, didn't think about that. That's an important thing that might help me in the future when planning a road trip. So I know it's been a while because I've been spending all this time with school and planning my road trip. So I've been a little bit busy, and I finally got a little bit of time to be able to go over this with you all. It's kind of hard not to look it down at my list, so I'll try to keep my eyes on the video camera. Once again, I am not a professional vlogger person, so a lot of this is going to be a little bumpy when I'm trying to do these videos. So let's get started. Number one was budget. And I know that is a very obvious thing to think about is budget, but specifically, what are you okay with splurging on versus what are you okay with skimping on? So when you're doing a road trip, something to think about is, are you going for the food, for the destination, for the sightseeing? And that matters because depending on where you want to splurge, that can then make your budget that much bigger. You might need a little bit more money if you are going to a historical place specifically. For example, let's say you're going to Salem, Massachusetts, and yes, we will be stopping there actually, and you love history. So you want to stay at a historical building that's going to cost you around $250 a night. So that's something to consider. It's going to cost you $250 a night to stay at a historical place. Versus if you were going to another place like Utica, New York, which no shade on Utica, New York, but I've never heard of it, and we're stopping there as well. But there, we don't really have a place that we want to visit. We don't have food that we really want to try there. So we're stopping there just as a cheap stopover, and we didn't care if it cost us, you know, like $50 to stay somewhere that's not that great. So we were okay with skimping on staying there. Not that we've stayed there. I'm maybe not the best at past and present tense, but when we were booking a place in Utica, New York, we were like, okay, we're just stopping there to sleep and then leave the next day. We don't really care how great it is as long as the bed is good and the place isn't like completely gross. So just something to consider is like, do you want to splurge on a really nice place? Are you splurging on the sightseeing? Are you splurging on the food? Or is it all three because you want to do all three of the things at once? Of course, this can change depending on where you're stopping. So if you really don't care and you just want to sleep there, you know that you're going to spend less money to stay somewhere. But then you know that maybe you love food, so you're going to spend a certain amount of your budget on food and then a certain amount of your budget on sightseeing if you want to go sightseeing. So just something to consider because there's different amounts required for different parts of the vacation and the road trip. So things to take into consideration when planning your budget. Accommodations tend to be a little bit more expensive, obviously, but if you're not splurging on that and that's your skimping, then you know that you can just add that part to your food budget, or maybe you'll be saving overall because you're just there to drive around and just look at things while you're driving. It just depends what kind of person you are when road tripping or what this road trip is for, certain things like that when considering your budget. So splurging versus skimping on to determine your budget based on place you're staying, food, or sightseeing. What are your three things that you want to do with your budget and where you want to spend it on? The number two to think about is time. So by that I mean is how much time do you have to do this road trip? Is it, a quick 3-day road trip? Is it a whole week? Is it 2 weeks or even more? Because when you're thinking about that, you obviously also want to determine when you're going to be taking it, when you're going to be driving, because that's going to determine your destination, obviously. Because if you do a 3-day road trip, you really don't want to be going to a destination that takes 1.5 days to get there and then 1.5 days to get back, because then you're not really going to enjoy yourself. You're going to be driving the whole time, even though you get to stop and see something beautiful, and then you have to come and turn back around right away. So really consider that. How much time do you have? What places are nearby? And which places do you really, really want to look at? You can totally, once you're thinking about time, you can think of all the places that you really, really want to visit. So that actually ends up kind of melding into my third point. The second point was really short because I think you would know based on, your job, or school or whatever it is that you're doing at the time. That kind of determines how much time you have to go do that road trip, and when you can go do it. So sliding right into number 3 would be the destination, obviously. So you're thinking about just maybe you've had places that you've really wanted to visit that sound really cool, or that you've wanted to try food at, or you think there's like an awesome location that someone told you about or you saw on TV, and you think, oh, that'd be really awesome to go visit that. Just sit down and write all of that down, and then you can just cross off the ones that aren't the smartest because it's too far away, and the length of time that you have is not enough, or you'd spend too much time driving instead of actually enjoying the stuff. So really just sitting down and writing all of that gives you great options, because then you can just sift through it, look it up, and see if you really do want to go there. That's how we decided some of the places we were going to. Some of the places that I was thinking about is Buffalo, New York, because I love food, and one of the things that I love is buffalo wings, and it happened to be that Buffalo, New York is really close to Niagara Falls, so that was like a nice oopsie daisy. So I had written that down, and I was like, that'd be really cool to go there. And then when I was looking things up on the map, I was like, it's right 20 minutes away from Niagara Falls, another place we wanted to stop at on the way. So that just happened to be a really nice stumble, and where we'll actually also be staying one of the days, because we're going to be visiting Niagara Falls, and then that night we're going to eat and go visit some places that make the original buffalo wings, which I'm really excited about, if you can't tell. So definitely something to consider. And then looking at my list right here, it says, so one of the things is, be careful not to go too crazy with the destination, as I said, because if you decide to think and you're like, I'm just going to buckle down and drive 12 hours each day and it'll be fine because I just want to go places. Here's the thing. First of all, you're going to be really exhausted. And if you're going with someone or more than one person, you guys might be cranky at each other. You all might get, really cranky staying in a car for 12 hours of driving, because it's a lot of time to drive in a car. Even 8 hours of driving is a lot. So it's just, think about if you really want to spend that time driving for so many hours in the car instead of, stopping at a halfway point and then driving more the next day. So really something to consider. Or maybe just not going to a certain destination because it'll just be too much stress and you won't actually really get to enjoy yourself. Plus, another thing that was pointed out to me, you actually have to rest your car every 6 hours because it's a motor. Obviously, it's like you are a human being who needs 8 hours of sleep, right? Or you don't function very well. Same thing with your car. If it's running for more than 6 hours just straight, it really puts a lot of stress on the motor, because you usually don't do that to your car every day. And you actually are supposed to stop for 1 hour after 6 hours of driving. Even if you haven't been driving necessarily 6 hours nonstop, let's say you stop for 5 minutes for gas, 5 minutes to pee, or whatever it is here and there, you still need to stop at one point for a whole hour to rest your car. And then if you plan on driving another 6 hours, then you definitely have to factor in that 1 hour in the middle that you're going to have to stop. So that's going to be 13 hours, if not more, of having to stop and make sure that your car is good and that you are putting gas and all of that stuff. So next thing you know, that turns into 14 hours. So really something to consider is you don't want to overdo it for your car, because your car is the one that's getting you around on the road trip, and you really don't want to overburden it and end up hurting your car and becoming very exhausted and then kind of ruining part of your trip because you're just so tired. So take that into consideration when you're determining destinations and time and all of that in your road trip when you're planning it. They're very important things to take into consideration. So top three things is budget, time, and destination. Those are the big three things that you really need to take into consideration and think about long and hard when you're planning all of this. I know it takes time and sometimes it seems like exhausting that you have to do all of this planning and write all of this down, but in the end it's going to be worth it because it's going to make that vacation, that road trip, that much easier for you because you'll have already everything planned out, you'll have everything figured out ahead of time, and you don't even have to worry as much because you know that if you get a flat tire, you already got that tire kit in your car. If you have already been driving for 4 hours, oh, my destination's just an hour further away because I plan to just drive 5 hours this one day. You know what I mean? So just having your own back in the future, your future self will thank your past self. That's for sure. So those were the three things that I thought about because obviously I've just been spending a lot of time planning all of these things, and all of these things have been really helpful in thinking and writing all of that out. And obviously I've also stumbled and whatnot. And also if you have any tips or tricks or any destination or food places that you think I should visit, definitely put that and comment that below. Because as I've said before, we're kind of taking this journey together on this channel. I know I'm the one taking the literal journey, but we're all learning from each other. At least that's the goal with my channel. And I hope you enjoyed and learned something from today's video, and thank you for joining me today.